Hello, hello, welcome, welcome. It is Tuesday, November 18th, 7 p.m. on the East Coast. We have lots of folks from Australia, so it may be Wednesday, November 19th. You never know. Let me know what time it is in your house. Anyway, just getting here. We always like to let people get in and get started, get situated, get comfortable. It's early yet, Beth. No worries. So we'll give everybody a couple minutes to get in and get situated. And then we'll get started. Yeah, I always love coming on StreamYard after a bevy of meetings in Zoom with the Zoom filter that makes you look about 15 years younger. And then you get on here and you're like, oh, yeah, that. Woo. Uh, anyway, if you're here, say hi. Let us know where you're from. And like I said, we'll get started in the next couple of minutes. I see Beth is in the house and Nathan is in the house. Hi, SB. Robert Spence in the house. Phyllis is here. Oh, that's awesome, SP. Boom. You are so welcome. This is an awesome community, and I'm so excited that things worked out well for you. Congratulations. Massive success. You should be insanely proud of yourself. So thank you for the update, and keep us updated. When do you start? Is it are you starting spring semester? Or do you start next year? But either way, congratulations. That is awesome. I love hearing that. I'm gonna get a drink of water here. Whew. So if you're just joining us, welcome, welcome, welcome. Please say hello. Let us know you're here. Feel free to tell us where you are located if you're new to Community Conversations. And with that, it's a couple minutes past the hour. So let's go ahead and jump into the things that I'm required to say so we can talk about the things that we're not required to say. That makes some sense. So as always, this live stream is educational and is not intended to replace therapy. So for treatment-related questions, please work with your local provider or contact a local clinician. You can also use the IOCDF's online resource directory at iocdf.org/find-help to locate a trained clinician near you. Also, the IOCDF is not a crisis hotline. If you are in a crisis or ever feeling suicidal or unsafe, please call the 988 Suicide and Crisis Lifeline by dialing 988 or going to your local emergency room or call 911. And as always, we want to create a safe space, be kind and respectful to everyone. At the end of the day, we're all here to support one another. And to note, this is being broadcast on several social media platforms and is being recorded. So always keep that in mind as we talk about very personal and sensitive topics. And with that, let's get this party started. Next summer, awesome. I'm so excited. It absolutely is, and you should be just celebrate yourself, self-care. Dude, that's fantastic, and proof this community is so important to recovery. Yes, everybody wants to know. I don't know if I'm ready to divulge a secret this deep, Beth. But the answer is 90% of the times I eat dinner before the stream. I don't like to eat late typically. Sleeping is challenging enough. If it's just a crazy day and I have meetings up until 15 minutes before, I'll grab a quick snack and then we'll eat afterwards. Or if Katie and I decide to cook together, we'll cook afterwards. But 9 times out of 10, I'll eat dinner before the stream, as I did tonight. Inquiring minds want to know. Also, Beth, you did a thing. So I usually wait a few weeks to open boxes. Don't want to touch anything too soon, but it was moss from my crab. So I opened it the same day and put it into tanks. That is awesome. And that is the power of being other directed. You have creatures to take care of that they rely on you. They cannot survive without the Beth. And so you're willing to put your discomfort aside and the name of crabdom and mossify your darling crabs. And so you can do it. You did it. What's up? Cash is in the house. Still alive, but I look less alive than I did before. Anyway, I hope that's encouragement for you to do more things, because you absolutely can. But that's a huge win. So applause to you, Beth. Thank you, Vivita. Hope you're all doing well. Send support to everyone struggling. Thank you. Cash in the house. Boogery Bollocks, I am late. Ethan is still alive, unfortunately. I was hoping it'd be Rev K, to be honest. She was here last week. We will be doing the stream. We have 3 in a row this month of November, and we will be doing it together next week before Thanksgiving. So you'll want to tune in for a double feature. We are the feature, and there are 2 of us, which make it a double feature. I came up with that. You can use it, Beth. Crabdom. Yes. Why does this look like, like people going like this? It looks like, hey, it looks like the crabs are like, oh no, the hearts, not that. I don't know what that is, but that I probably just did some highly cancelable, like I'm not going to do it again. But anyway, hearts. Yes, absolutely. Anyway, yes, you do. You love it, Crash. You love the crabs. Okay. So, how's everyone doing? What do we want to talk about? I have lots. So much has gone on since last we spoke. Stop it, Cash. You're cruel man. Plus, that's not a normal. I know you live across the pond, but crabs isn't the typical dish for Thanksgiving. Now, if she cooked, if she had pet turkeys, that'd be a different. Anyway, my brain. I always say this because I have these exhausting days. They're really tiring. And then we should really start this at 10 a.m. East Coast time. I think this would be a lot more efficient and effective. Anyway, how's everyone doing? Fill me in. Tell me how you're doing. Go ahead and throw some questions at me. And if not, I am more than happy to start the conversation off. But let me know how you're feeling, or let me know if there's things on your mind, things you're struggling with. I know we're going into the holiday season. Hey, Dottie, it's good to see you. I know we're going into the holiday season, and that can always be challenging. I know my hair doesn't look brushed, but I tried. So that's what happens. Hi, Jane. So yeah, if you're just joining us, welcome. You didn't miss a whole lot, other than SP getting into medical school, which is awesome. And so explain, are you wearing a toupee? Hey, you changed your photo. Or no, well, or maybe you're just signed in on YouTube and not Facebook. But anyway, if this were a toupee, that would be so sad. I would clearly be, this would be like a second or third hand worn by multiple owner toupees that I somehow found in the back of a thrift parking lot. So no, I am not wearing a toupee. This is my own natural disaster. Thank you. Okay. So Beth said, explain OCD taking a backseat to my crabs. I don't understand it. Oh, okay. Great. Yeah. So what I meant by that was obviously, doing things for yourself has been challenging, right? Because OCD gets in there, it gets loud, and it's really hard to listen past the noise of what OCD is saying and screaming. However, when you're responsible for something or someone else, then the stakes are raised because, in the sake of you, the crabs can't get the moss for themselves, right? And so suddenly, you have a value that is urgent, and that value that is urgent can encourage you and move you along quicker to take a value-driven action that you may not have taken before, such as open a box when it just comes versus waiting 2 weeks for it to sort of decontaminate, right? So when I say OCD took the back seat to the crabs, that meant the crabs became the priority, not OCD, meaning the priority wasn't protecting yourself from a perceived threat. The the priority was taking care of the crabs. And so you were willing to take a risk, embrace uncertainty, and do what you had to do in order to support your pets or your family, right? And so that's what I meant by OCD taking a backseat to your crabs. That's amazing. Yeah, that's further what Patrick said, pretend everyone outside is a crab and go out. I love that. That is hysterical. That is hysterical. And yeah, I think that's a great idea. But that's also what Patrick meant, right? If you can harness the power of what it means, he is out of his mind. And that's why we love him. But if you can harness the power of, then it may work out really well for you, Beth. But I'm super proud of you. That is awesome. Yeah, and Jane, you raise a great point, right? POCD. Oh, Phyllis, I love you. Thank you. Great question. Sorry, I jumped around, but when I see a compliment, my eyes just dart straight to it. Jane wrote, consider the Epstein files triggering POCD. That's 100% valid. Absolutely. And, much like any news that can be potentially triggering, as all this goes down and people vote and it may or may not be released, my suggestion is to temper your access to news, right? Choose a time once a day, 15 minutes. If you typically look at the news or you find yourself looking at the news a lot, I would recommend tempering that, creating boundaries for yourself, absorb some news, maybe 10, 15 minutes at a time, once a day, and then moving on, similar to what we found ourselves doing with COVID and everything else. And that will help mitigate some of the triggering aspects, if there are triggering aspects, but that is completely valid. And I understand that totally. Is being addicted to chapstick an OCD thing? So, Kevin, my follow-up question to you is, what is the reason you feel, so you say addicted, so I'm going to assume that you use it a lot. Maybe you use it more than most people you think use it. So with that being said, what is the reason? So for instance, do you not like the feeling of when your lips start to feel dry and you don't want to have that feeling? So you use chapstick pretty regularly, if not more so, to avoid that feeling, right? So, or is there an associated thought that happens, or is using the chapstick? So in that regard, a chapstick could be compulsive in the sense that you are trying to avoid a feeling, right? So you want to neutralize that feeling by using the chapstick. And that feeling probably precedes the feeling of, oh, my lips are chapped, right? So, or, and the reason I say or is there might be another reason you're using chapstick, like there could be magical thinking involved, like, oh, I have to use this chapstick or something bad will happen. So my guess, I use a tube per day. So my question is, so when you go to use your chapstick, what is the impetus? Is it okay, there you go. Sorry, I didn't see that before. Yes, I spoke and I hate that dry feeling. Okay. So yeah, it can be compulsive. It doesn't have to be anything more than just wanting a just right feeling. And so, just like in wintertime when your lips are chapped, you keep licking them over and over again, right? And we know that licking them makes them worse and worse. We need to stop licking them and put on chapstick. So that makes a lot of sense. I wouldn't necessarily say being addicted to chapstick is an OCD thing. I would say that, potentially if you're diagnosed with OCD, that could be one of your compulsions. Right. 100%. But the obsession, it doesn't have to be I totally agree with you, Kevin. So it is the neutralizing factor or the neutralizing action to make you feel better, right? So the obsession doesn't necessarily have to be a thought. Sometimes it can just be a feeling. Simply put, you don't like the feeling when they start to dry out, right? It might be too early, or you really just want to avoid that feeling altogether. So you're going to use your chapstick over and over again to avoid that completely. And that makes total sense. So I don't know that it's an OCD thing rather than, could be a discomfort thing. But if you have OCD, it's likely become sort of a compulsive behavior for you. Sure. So the way to deal with that would to be obviously sit with the discomfort. If your lips feel a little dry, but they aren't necessarily chapped, right? Maybe you can resist a little longer going into that, using that chapstick. Um, I just licked my lips. I'm like, things like that. But yeah, that makes sense. Back to, let's see here, the most important comment of the day. Hi, Nikki Bradley. Oh, Cash. You stop it. Please don't behave. Um, I agree, Phyllis. I think it's good for everyone's mental health to temper access to news. 1000%. 1000%. It's a great rule across the board. What is the best therapy for real event OCD, false memory OCD involving my work? Yeah, that's a great question. May I ask what your work is? Is that okay? And it's okay. You don't have to answer, but out of curiosity. And then when I see your comment, I'll weigh in. I'll star this. Okay, sorry. I'm just quickly scrolling. Do you think the numbers of words whilst you use it for fear of dryness? Yeah, Cash, thank you. Do you think numbers or words while you use it, or is it the fear of dryness? Yeah, and I think it's not just, I actually think it's probably not just a fear, but simply put, just a discomfort, an uncomfortable feeling that we're trying to avoid. And that makes a lot of sense. Scrolling down quickly, I work as a journalist. Okay. So Brian, thank you for sharing. Real event OCD and false memories can be really, really challenging. Sorry, let me close this. Oops. Sorry about that. Got distracted, which is why I'm closing it. So false memory can be really challenging. Let me pull you up there. Real event OCD, obviously something that actually occurred or something that you may have thought occurred but maybe didn't. At the end of the day, it comes down to, well, first of all, the best therapy is exposure and response prevention. It still is the gold standard treatment for OCD. And it doesn't matter what subtype or symptom of OCD, even if it's real event or false memory OCD, it would still fall into that exposure and response prevention category. Along with other modalities of treatment like acceptance commitment therapy or ICBT. At the end of the day, aspects of those therapies work really, really well. It's still about embracing the embracing. That's my new word. Embracing the uncertainty of what may have happened, what you might think, and how you still feel, and accepting that feeling or potential, right? That memory or thing existed as a memory, and then moving forward with a value-driven decision. And I know that can be really scary, especially with real event, because it did happen, right? Or false memory where it may or may not have happened. It's hard to determine. And it really is choosing to live with that ambiguity and uncertainty around those events, right? Around those thoughts, and move forward anyway. And trusting yourself with that. So yeah, exposure and response prevention, working with a treatment provider. But if you had a more specific question regarding that, please weigh in, Brian. Okay. Ethan, you're almost never stumped. No, not a few times. Maybe I forgot. I wish I remembered. Somebody asked a question like a month and a half ago, and I was really like, I have no idea what they're talking about. And I kind of like Googled off to the side. No, still didn't understand it. But I appreciate that. I try not to be stumped. I like to feel like I have a pretty good understanding of OCD and most of the related disorders. All right. Phyllis Levenkovich saw her show up in my feed. Sorry, just scrolling down here. Unbracing is more satisfied than embracing. I totally agree with that, Cash. As I start studying, head burns a lot at back with headache. What to do, sir? can you maybe elaborate a little bit more, assembling minds, on what your experience? Are you referring to an obsession or compulsion that comes along with studying? Please feel free to elaborate, and I'm happy to answer the question. I'm just not sure what you're asking. She does. She has a crab manger. It is spectacular. Three wise crabs, shepherd crabs, baby Jesus crab, Mary crab, Jesus crab, pig and donkey crab. Yeah, I've seen a picture, and they are something special. So winning. Um, Amazing. If you're joining us, if you've just joined us, welcome, 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 welcome. We are just starting our. It's a new one for me too, Nathan. It was newly discovered, and I don't know. Maybe we'll run with it. Who knows? Um, but if you're just joining us, if you have questions, comments, anything that's on your mind, I know we're heading into the holidays. Brian, if you have any follow-ups to what you were asking before. So my OCD son has a new baby. Talk about priority. Wait, my OCD son has a new baby. Oh, your son with OCD. I think you're saying your son with OCD. Maybe. Great question. Hi, Ash. How are you, Ethan, feeling going into 2026 in 1.5 months? Would it be weird to say that I don't know that I've thought about it too much? I think that's a good thing and a bad thing, in the sense that I've been pretty present-minded. But with that being said, I feel good. I think I don't know that I've been asked this question, and we just talked about me not being stumped. I think when you've gone through it, as we all have in some way, shape, or form with our OCD, and fought and really just been at the bottom and clawed our way back. um I feel like everything to a certain extent is manageable. um and I don't know what that necessarily looks like, and I don't know what it will be, but there is a strange comfort in knowing that if you're fighting OCD and winning a little bit, you can take on pretty much anything, which means that, I have a lot of hope for 2026 as I did 2025. And, I feel confident and good going into it. And I don't know what's coming my way. I hope it's really wonderful things, but there's always curveballs, and that's part of life. But I am just, hopeful and optimistic, cautiously so. Um, and as we go into this new year with most of the things we have no control over, right? So we just try to do the things that we have control over in a positive and value driven way. So it's a great question. I ask you the same question. How is everyone feeling about 2026? I like that question. Thank you. OC thoughts just don't trigger directly as I study, but headache with confusion makes too hard to study. Okay. Well, I'm genuinely not sure what is causing uh, your confusion, your headaches and confusion. There might be an actual medical association there that may not be mental health related, that you might want to, if you're getting, studying and you're getting a lot of mental, if you're getting confusion and foggy headedness and headaches, that may be something to look into. A lot of times though, if I don't know if studying, or if you're talking about school, increases anxiety, right? And maybe a stressor and a trigger for you, that can often, obviously stress can cause headaches and sort of a foggy brain, just sort of like disassociation and things like that. So, if that's happening, that may be a different story, but I really don't have a why as to why you would have headaches and confusion, making it hard to study, unless, you have additional insight onto maybe some of your diagnosis and what you're going through and how it relates to OCD. Let's see here. Hi, Imagio. I think I said that right. How to stop rumination when your brain tells you to review, check, and perform mental compulsions? Yes, great question. So it can feel very challenging, and it is. Ruminating is can seem a little bit more challenging task than maybe a physical compulsion. At least that's what a lot of people tell me. Just because things in your brain just happen, right? There isn't a physical component where you may be able to stop yourself mid reach, although individuals with physical compulsions may say differently, right? The reality of it is that it's just like any other compulsion in the sense that, you want to resist compulsing in an effort to live with the uncertainty and the possibility that whatever it is you're ruminating or trying to figure out, there isn't a need to do that, right? So if you're reviewing, checking, performing mental compulsions, you're reviewing and checking, you're going over something that happened usually. And if this isn't your situation, feel free to elaborate. But typically you're reviewing or rewinding or checking for something, looking for some sort of data or information that may prove your fear to not be true, right? And if you don't do that, it feels irresponsible. And that's one of the tricky parts about rumination is if you don't engage in it, it feels like you're being irresponsible to yourself or others. So it's important that you go back and check and figure out and make sure you can gain certainty in whatever the fear or concern is. So the challenge to that would be to be willing to live with the possibility of whatever you were fearing that may have happened or not happened. And instead of reviewing and checking and performing, even though those thoughts can feel very automatic, is to try to come back to the present moment and try to engage in a value-driven action, whether you're at work or with family or watching a movie, talking to a friend, taking care of a child or a pet, right? Try to be as engaged in the moment as possible, as opposed to giving in to that OCD's desire to have you review and check and perform those mental compulsions. At the end of the day, the how to stop is exposure and response prevention, connecting with a therapist or a mental health professional and starting to do ERP around OCD. That is, one of the most effective ways to stop ruminating. But, with intrusive thoughts and reviewing and checking, which is a lot of what I dealt with really when I was at my sickest, it feels really challenging because it feels automatic, right? There doesn't feel like an opportunity to recognize that you're in the middle of compulsing and then stop it, right? So that choice point seems to be very gray and mushy, rather than, okay, I could go wash my hands now. Maybe I will, maybe I won't have to walk to another room. These thoughts happen involuntarily and very quickly, right? So it almost seems impossible to catch yourself before I have the thought. So, I think it's important to recognize the simple difference between obsessions and compulsions when we're talking about mental. So let's say that your obsession is you keep having the thought, John. Okay, that is your thought. You keep having this thought, John. And every time you think John, it makes you very uncomfortable. You get a lot of anxiety and you just don't want to think John, right? So in an effort to not think John, you think James, right? So John is the obsession. That's the obsessive thought. That is the thing that you are not able to control. It's just happening. It's a thought that keeps looping. And then James is the compulsion. That is the choice. You're choosing to think that name to neutralize the John thought. That is the compulsion. That is the thing that you are choosing to think on purpose, right? So you may have these obsessions about what your brain is, your OCD is scaring you about. Maybe I did hit that person in the parking lot, right? Maybe I did, what if I did hurt that person? I don't know, all my stuff is self-harm. So that's all I have, fear of harming others. So that's where my mind goes. But what if I did get too close to that person and got them sick? Whatever you want to think of, right? That's the obsessive thought. The compulsive thought is like, okay, I walked out the store and I made a left turn and I did I bump that person or did I not bump that? I don't really remember if I did bump that, right? That's all the compulsion. So, and all that does is continue to feed the flame of the obsessive thought. So the goal with this is to be willing to sit with the obsessive thought without engaging in the reviewing and checking. And by doing that over time, the obsessive thought starts to quiet down. It's really hard, but it is worth it, and treatment works, and OCD is a very treatable disorder, even though it is a bitch, for lack of a better word, for sure. But that is the ultimate goal. So I always say, if you're in treatment or just starting, or you haven't found a therapist yet, or wherever you are in your journey, you're in rumination and mental rituals has really got you looped in, you may not be able to notice when you start compulsing, but at some point you will recognize that you are doing this, right? It may not be right away, but at some point you'll recognize that you're in the middle. Oh, I've been, 5 minutes, 10 minutes has gone by and I've been trying to rewind. So my challenge is, how many times can you come back to the present moment? How many times can you come back to whatever it is you're doing and try to stay there, right? And you might come back to this thousands of times. It's not the fact that you're pulled away that is you are losing, or you're not succeeding at this challenge. Your goal is to see how many times you can come back, right? So I want you to look at, like, I came back 20 times today to the present moment. That's a huge win, right? The goal is to not be stuck in that other place. That is the goal. If you can come back and you have to do it 100, 1,000, 10,000 times, that's okay, because that's where this starts, finding those moments, recognizing those times when you're compulsing, and then jumping back into the present moment. That's training your brain to start to recognize when a compulsion is going on, as opposed to just fully giving yourself over and not realize you're doing it. And once you're in that power position, you can start to make newer decisions, or new decisions, that start to continue to change the course of what you're obsessing and compulsing about. Hopefully that was helpy. We're coming up with all kinds of new words tonight. Helpy and embracing. Maybe we'll have a third out there. We don't know. Maybe Katie should take this over full time. Hey, Chad in the house. Welcome. Have you ever experienced dissociation, depersonalization, when the anxiety associated with OCD gets to be a bit too much? 100%. Absolutely. And I'm sure many people have as well. I think that it's a defense mechanism. It's kind of a checkout defense mechanism where you don't necessarily have to be present for, all of those intense anxiety, right? And so it's easier to just kind of float outside of your body, and you don't have to quite be totally there to experience it. 100%. I have many times, and it's not the most comfortable feeling, but it is a defense mechanism of the brain trying to cope with this perceived fear. So yeah, you're definitely not alone in that, Chad. And 1,000%. Just all the love, man. 100%. Thank you. That's also what I was sort of getting at. And it's okay to look ahead too, but I love that, Beth. So thank you. EEU, Ethan's embracing. Would it be like it should be like Ethan's embracing uncertainty. Yeah. Ethan's embracing uncertainty. Maybe that's what it is. I like it. Assembling minds, that's very common, unfortunately. And you're not alone in that. It's you almost forget what you felt like, sort of that peace and freedom and that quiet in your head, right? As opposed to now your mind is very, very busy, and you're always tired and trying to resist engaging in compulsions, and just exhaustion 24/7, right? So, I mean, maybe, not to take wild guesses here, but, headaches, and I don't know if you have OCD around studying, but if you do, it might be a trigger for you, in which case it makes sense that you would get headaches and just confusion and all of that stuff, right? If there's association to it. So that makes a lot of sense. And I'm sorry you don't feel that way. I think we can all relate to not feeling how we used to before OCD. I think that makes a lot of sense. Ash in the house, I'm holding on to Seattle in 2026, something I'm majorly looking forward to. I feel less distressed about growing more and find more focus on growing into. Absolutely, that makes sense. I love that. Growing, I feel less distressed about growing more and find I'm more focused on growing into. I love that, and I think that's so important. I think that a lot of it, well, I can only speak for myself, right? I think that I was very emotionally delayed because of the OCD. So when I got better, I can relate to this a lot. I don't know that I made this exact connection in this way, because this is really astute, but I think that I was a 34-year-old man that was, kind of already developed, not physically, but just in a lot of different ways, but was also very much a shell, where I hadn't really moved in, right? And I hadn't really grown into. I needed to learn before I continue to grow more. I really needed to learn to catch back up with myself, right? And let my emotional and my emotional maturity, now that OCD wasn't in the forefront and disrupting my function, catch up with my age and who I am and what I want to do. I really like the way you see that. I think that's really, really relatable. And I think when you grow into a certain extent, then there's an opportunity to grow more. I think they're both wonderful, but I love growing into. I think that's beautifully said, and I relate to that a lot. So thank you for sharing. And yes, hope to see you in Seattle. So Seattle was the conference. Seattle was the city that was supposed to be the 2020 summer of 2020 conference. And I don't know if you remember, but this thing happened in 2020. Beth is familiar with it. So of course the conference was canceled. I've never been to Seattle. So I'm super excited, and I look forward to seeing you there, and anyone else who wants to come. Hi, Brian. Thank you. It's basically a fear that I used a tool like when I first started my job, and I later learned that I shouldn't do now. I feel guilty and embarrassed. Yep, fear that I used a tool when I first started my, and that's very common, Brian. And I think that it's okay to have those feelings. I also think that we have to recognize that we're human. I have to think that I think we have to recognize that we owe ourselves lots of self-compassion and lots of grace, and it's all about learning, right? So yes, this thing happened. Absolutely. Simultaneously though, right? A lot of times the guilt and guilt is is insinuation that you did something wrong. Maybe you did, but also maybe you just didn't know, right? Found out later that I shouldn't, and I feel guilty and embarrassed, and that's okay. But the reality is, you deserve to do what you love, and it's no different than making any. At least without knowing too much detail, I think it's no different than making any other unintentional mistake, right? And anything else we do. And obviously OCD can loop into this, but your goal now is to recognize, yep, that happened. And, I didn't know. Now I do. And I'm going to move forward because this is what I want to be doing. These are the values that I want to pursue. And this is important to me. And I also know that OCD attacks this thing and makes me feel shame and makes me feel guilt and makes me feel embarrassed and concerned if I do something again, and casts all these doubts and sows these seeds of uncertainty around all of this, right? When really it's time to just accept, give yourself loads of grace and self-compassion, and live with the discomfort of that guilt and embarrassment, really recognizing that those things are probably OCD, right? You probably move past that. Oh, whoops, I'm sorry. Gosh, I didn't know that, right? And so I think that's the goal. I stand by, and I've said this for years, that feelings are, for me, the ultimate tool that OCD has on us. Feelings are the things that convince us that our thoughts may be true or real. Before that, they're just thoughts, and they're not real to begin with, right? Thoughts are just thoughts, but it's the feeling that then gives us agency to really question they must be true if I feel it, right? So embarrassment and shame and guilt, emotions, but also feelings, right? And I think feelings are just such a strong weapon for OCD. And that's why, like, in regards to OCD and OCD treatment, I've said this a million times too, I've never invalidate anyone's feelings. I don't invalidate my feelings, but I also don't care about my feelings. At least I try not to care about my feelings when it comes specifically to OCD, because I know that my feelings are the things that's going to trip me up. I'm going to feel so strongly about something that it's going to distort the true nature of whatever it is. And so I think, and especially those feelings of embarrassment and guilt and shame, they're really intense, really strong feelings, right? But it's that ability to let them go. Can also, with true event OCD and false memory OCD, can feel irresponsible to move forward because that thing happened before, and it really did happen. It wasn't just something I made up. And so I think that it's important to, wow, I lost my train of thought. This happens when you get old and don't have a Zoom filter. What was I saying? I hate when that happens. It drives me crazy. Um, yeah, I'm sure. You know what? Instead of like, I'm not going to compulse over trying to figure out what it was. I'm just going to embrace the fact, Brian, that I love what I said up to that point. Expect what I was about to say to be even more genius, and we'll come back to that. But hopefully, what I did get out was helpful, and we'll just be okay with not wrapping it in a bow. Sure, it was really interesting, but I'll keep going here. Yes, Cash, no comments. Let's see here. Beth Carducci, whatever I'm doing isn't working. I have to change the way I think, but I don't know what to think. If it happens to me, I'll deal with it. Then doesn't work for me. Feels like it's not good. Yes, but Beth, I don't know. I think we can just keep motivating you. I think you know all the things. Um, I think you can deal with it, and you would deal with it, and you will deal with it. I don't know that there's a difference between opening up a package that right away, embracing that uncertainty, and any other going out, going to the grocery store, right? Engaging in those things. You took a chance. Why did you take that chance? You wanted to make sure that your crabs had what they needed, right? You are also a crab. You deserve to have things that you need, and you need to start taking those chances. The risks, I'm not going to sit here and tell you long COVID isn't real, because it is. I get that. Just like Ebola is real, or getting hit by lightning is real, or getting hit by a car is real. All those things are real, but um, we all take risks, educated risks, when we decide to engage in this life and go out in the world and participate, right? We all do. And we do that because otherwise we're going to live a very small life of trying to protect ourselves from every possible threat. And I know you're not happy. I know that you're already living in the life that you can already see how small it typically gets. And so, you only have two options here at this point. And the options are take the educated risk or don't. But you're already living the life that you would be living if you had it. So this is as bad as it gets, in my opinion. You can only go up. So, is there, I mean, in all of your A to Z, also, you don't have anything right now. And then, like, if I get this, and if that turns into that, and you have no idea what any of that will be like. And I know there's message boards and threads, and there are for anything. The internet is the first place people go to, right? When like, if I read message boards on all the crap that I'm afraid of, I'm sure I would be so stuck, because, so I and everyone here, and Katie, we love you. We believe in you. We have quotes after you. We're making T-shirts and merch after Beth Carducci, but we also firmly, firmly believe in our hearts that you just got to do it. You do. You just got to do it. And you're allowed to take it slow, and you're allowed to be systematic. You're allowed to wear a mask and bring sanitizer and do all the things. But you just took an awesome step with the package, and I want you to continue that momentum. And you know what? It absolutely gets to, like, if it happens, you will deal with it. That is the reality. And the reality of the other side of that is, if you're not willing to take that chance, then there's nothing else, right? If you're afraid of being broken up with, then don't try for love. If there's all these other things that can happen, but we keep doing these things that are important to us because the risk is worth the reward. In your case, the risk is very, very small. It's real, but so is all these other things. And the reward is living the life that I know you deserve, that know you feel, and then I know that you really, really, really want to have. So I love you, Beth. I was, yeah, I was too. And oh, Robert, sorry. I was too. So when I said we relate, that is the one time you can't relate to what your mind was like before OCD. I was born with it as well, and I don't remember what it wasn't like to worry about something. I relate to that. Um, I don't think I knew that, Beth. Go see the head injury when I was 11. That's when all the weird things started happening. Ethan said it could have been triggered because of it. I put two and two together, and it's definitely not a coincidence. No, trauma can definitely cause Doesn't have to be a head injury specifically, but trauma can definitely cause, or not cause, but typically an individual has a genetic predisposition to OCD, whether it's genetic or otherwise, and a lot of times either a milestone event or a trauma, an injury, a death, an accident, something like that can trigger onset of OCD. So that's not uncommon at all. Why would she? I'm as good as it gets, Cash. No, I don't. I'm trying to think about like any, I don't have our OCD, relationship OCD. I do have fleeting thoughts though. My fleeting thoughts, if I were to pinpoint any, and I don't compulse around them typically. If I were to identify any OCD thoughts about my relationship, it would be, what if I'm a bad husband? Because I've never been a husband before, and later in life, although lots of people have been husband earlier in life, but you get what I'm saying. What if I'm a bad husband? What if I'm being abusive? What if I'm mean? What if I'm nasty? All of those things. I have those thoughts occasionally, and I will occasionally say to Katie, like, am I mean? Or am I okay? Do you feel loved and supported? But that's as much as it gets, and it isn't too often that I think that. But no, I actually don't have a fear of her cheating on me. Maybe I should, I don't know. But I do not. So, but great question. Or her, you. I don't think so. I don't think so. I don't think cheating is a thing. I think our relationship, I think the most discomfort we have in our relationship regarding our relationship is literally is I think we're not comfortable having conflict with each other. Our OCD is afraid of having conflict because, if I upset her or she upsets me, is that going to end? Does that mean the relationship wasn't meant to be? It goes to that very much that A to Z, thinking of, oh my gosh, if we argue, if we disagree on something, then that means we're not meant to be together, and that's a divorce, right? So that's kind of, if there's any type of our OCD in our relationship, it's that kind of thinking. But neither one of us have relationship OCD, but there is like little dribs and hints of things like that, and we're actively working to, like, it's perfectly okay and natural to disagree with your partner. It's okay to have a position and an opinion, and it's okay to not agree at all about something, right? You're allowed to speak your mind and your feelings and be your own person, and all. We're like sort of growing into that, so things don't build over time. But cheating isn't a thing. I'm not worried about her cheating, and I don't think she's worried about me cheating. Maybe she is. No, but I don't think she is. Took a while to get here, but meeting other OCD advocates has given me a new confidence, connection, embrace myself in all its uncertainty. Glad it resonates. Awesome, Ash. I love that. Yeah, I feel the same way, Nathan. I don't remember a time that I wasn't worrying. And my earliest thoughts are me worrying about my mom dying and me being left alone. That's like the earliest things I remember. So I relate to that. I think that's wonderful that you don't have to feel those things, Nathan. I love that for you. They're not fun things to feel. And I think in this case, because I know you've said that before, I think in this case, it was less about feeling it around having OCD and more around the action that occurred. Unless you're literally saying you don't feel those things ever, which is valid too. But I think that's what Brian was originally talking about, was this idea of having some guilt and embarrassment over what had happened previously. Hi, Paul. Does OCD affect working out in the gym, and how far you're to treatment when you realize that all of these ideas are silly and nonsense? That's a great question. Lots of things there. So, I mean, it just depends, right? I can't really speak to, OCD affecting working out in the gym. It's unique to each individual person. Some individuals it doesn't impact at all, even if they're really struggling, and other people it impacts greatly. If it's germs or contamination, the gym is a really triggering place with everybody touching everything and wiping everything and breathing heavy and all of those things, right? If you have some other subtype or symptom, it may not bother you at all. And then, how far into treatment you realize that all the ideas are silly and nonsense. I actually would argue that you don't necessarily need treatment to recognize that the ideas are silly and nonsense. I think that's one of the more painful sides of OCD is this back and forth between objectivity and insight, and then really struggling with OCD. And that objectivity and insight can really come at any time. If someone's not triggered, at least in my case, if I wasn't triggered for any particular reason, then all the things I was compulsing about a did compulsion on seemed absolutely ridiculous. It's like, well, why? Well, who cares about that? That's stupid. I don't know why I did that or acted like that. That's ridiculous, right? And then when I was wrapped up in it, that seemed crazy. Everything seemed right. And so I think that this idea of realizing that the ideas are silly and nonsense, can come at any time. I think the real question we have to ask ourselves is whether we recognize, they're silly or nonsense, or really just being able to identify it is OCD, is the ability to maintain that belief, understand or believe that it's OCD, or have a good idea that it's OCD, and ultimately, whether it's silly or not, just not engage in a compulsion associated with it. I mean, that's really the goal we're talking about. And usually that specifically comes in the middle of treatment and therapy, and the timeline is different for everybody. It's a marathon, it's not a sprint. I always say that, but healing and getting better is not a one size fits all kind of shoe. It's literally different for everybody. And I've seen individuals with really severe OCD get well really fast. I've seen people with very mild OCD take a long time to get better, and everything in between. So there's no set pace, but I know just like at the gym, right? People lose weight in different ways and get in shape in different ways. And some people it takes longer and some people it doesn't, right? So this treatment's the exact same way. But if you stay aggressive and systematic in your approach, and really surrender to the idea of treatment and the treatment itself, you will see gains, 100%. Let's see here. Oh, I love this. Hi, Gadget Girl. I am doing more education on what OCD is and what's the best treatment is CBT and ERP. Mainly lately are RNNs, my PCP, and a therapist. They had no clue. Yeah. Did I miss a previous comment from you, Gadget? I apologize if I did, but I love that. How in the world could a person deal with maybe getting on COVID and being sick in bed forever? The same way somebody would deal with maybe getting cancer, or maybe getting severe MS and being in bed forever, or may getting any of the things that we have no control over, right? Insert long COVID with anything you want that is an unfortunate and terrible aspect and side effect of being a human and living a life. That's just the reality. And whether you're actively in bed, Beth, or in the house, you're not really leaving. And so in bed, out of bed, it's kind of semantics. So, the reality is how are you going to deal with something that's really scary? And I don't know, but the way you don't deal with it is protecting yourself so severely that you're not living. That is not the solution, right? But I would insert long COVID with anything else that is terrifying, and lots of things are terrifying. And I'm not sitting here, I don't know about other people, I don't go out and live life carefree and not worried about anything and could care less. I am not that person. I know people like that. I know people that don't have anxiety, and I am just like, you are special and I want whatever you have or don't have, or on or not on. The world is scary, thoughts are scary, feelings are scary, a lot of it is scary. This shit is scary. And me just getting passionate is my love for you and all of you here. But this stuff isn't easy. But the reality of all of this is you have to engage in it in order to live a full life. If you are interested in living a full life, then this is the path. This is the only path with OCD. This is it. It's your only option. So we're either going to dive in and go through the fire, because there's no getting around the fire. OCD will wrap you up, toss you out, spit you out, throw you out. Okay, you have to go through it. And maybe you'll get singed, a little burn here and there. But I am telling you, it will not kill you. It will make you stronger. It will make you stronger. So there are lots of times where I have self-doubt. And there are lots of times where I have strong feelings of fear. And there are lots of times where, all the human experiences rolled into one. But having been bedridden, having been in a psychiatric hospital more than once, having been on the sidelines of life, I feel insanely grateful and at times more lucky than strong, having gotten through the other side of really bad OCD. But I will not go back to that. I absolutely will not. It's hell. And honestly, I would rather live with long COVID the best I could than not live at all in the way that I wasn't living. And so it's just a non-issue for me. Doesn't mean that I don't compulse, doesn't mean that my OCD doesn't get loud. What it does mean though, is you better bet when you better bet when it gets to a point where I'm noticing changes in my life, I will step up and shut it down. You bet your ass I'll step up and shut it down, because I will not lose more of my life to OCD. 34 years was enough. And I know many that 70 years or 80 years, and they're just choosing to fight now. But yeah, it's just not worth it. I will take the chance all day long. And I'll call OCD out every time. It's a fucking liar. I don't know why I'm cursing tonight. The IOC, this may be my last stream. I've never dropped an F-bomb on this show. So it was good seeing you. Sorry, IOCDF, if you're watching. But I just get really passionate about that. I think that in this world of uncertainty, I think that the way we approach OCD has to be black and white. You either do or you don't fight it. I think you negotiate with it, you live in the gray with it, it'll take you back over. And that's not me saying if you mess up, if you compulse, if you are challenged, you should beat yourself up. That is not what I'm saying. Always give yourself compassion and grace and love and understanding, right? But the mindset should always be, I'm going to do my best to resist all of this. And if you make a mistake, that's okay, But in my mind, in this moment right now, when I'm not triggered by anything, I don't have any other options. When I get triggered, maybe I have a different story. But I always talk about, not always talk about, but there was that time in early 2024 when I got diagnosed, or not diagnosed, but they found a mass in my abdomen, and I had just gone to a surgical, an appointment with a surgeon, and Katie was with me, and the surgeon just had god awful, scary ass things to say. And the best case scenario was a horrible scenario, and then the worst case scenario was as bad as it gets. And I just didn't know what to think or what to do, and it was 3 weeks until I had the appointment with the oncologist who would give me further insight. And so after that appointment, that first night I spent in bed, I was a disaster. I was crying. And then the next night we had plans with friends. We were supposed to go to dinner in an escape room. And from 2 to 5, I was just on the floor crying. I was I thought my life was over. It was done. I was dead. I have a week to live. My mind was just screaming and loud, and I couldn't, and Katie was like, let's go. It's the best thing for you. Let's go out. And, I was just not like this. I'm not going out. This is, and I told her to go cancel. And I had this moment of clarity where I recognized that in the first time, my biggest fear was, an incidental finding of a medical nature. Right. So this was it. I went to the doctor for something and they found something else. And I made this sort of, I recognized that since I'd gotten better, if I didn't go out with my friends, if I didn't carry this pain with me, then I would start to relapse, because I was headed down a very dark path with my mind, and I was very much listening to my health anxiety and 100% to OCD. The fears were valid. The emotions were valid. All of it was valid. But the reality of it was I had no facts. The only thing I knew was I had a mass on my stomach and no one knew what it was. And the surgeon said it might be all of these things. Go see the doctor. And his differentials were from A to Z. My brain was connecting, oh my God, I'm going to die in a week. I'm never going to have kids. I'm going to lose all this, blah, 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 right? But those weren't the facts. The facts were, I have this thing and we still need to figure out what it is. And that was one guy talking off the cuff with no bedside manner. And I knew that to be true, but OCD was just screaming in my ear. So I was like, you know what? If I don't quickly readjust my thinking, acknowledge that healthy part of my brain that's saying, Ethan, yes, that's all very scary. And those things might be true, but they also might not be true. So until you have factual data backing up your biggest fears, you're going to live your life until you know otherwise. Meaning, Beth, I'm going to cross that, when I come to, if I have to, if and when I have to cross that bridge, I'll deal with it. In the meantime, I'm not near a bridge, so I'm going to go do my thing. Doesn't mean I went out and had the best time ever. I probably was like present 20% of the time, but it was my first step in sitting with the level of discomfort that I hadn't felt in a very long time. And it really paved the way for how I dealt with all of it down the road. I actually have my 1-year MRI coming up on December 3rd, and I'm pretty okay with it. I feel confident. I feel good. I have some anxiety, but I'm not like completely paralyzed. I was last year a little bit. But I tell that story because there's these moments where you just know it's going to go in the wrong direction. And the minute I made that choice, it reminded me how strong I was in fighting my OCD. And I'd forgotten, honestly. I didn't feel like I had that in me. And because of that, honestly, my OCD was really quiet last year. Of course, I had a lot of health anxiety and triggers as we continue to get tests and understand what it was, which they think it's benign. And we'll get tested again this year to confirm that. But sitting with that level of uncertainty, I got really good at it. I got really good sitting with that uncertainty and living present minded and being in the moment and doing fun things and going to my wife's graduation and buying a house and starting a business. And right, like I did all of those things with a pretty large level of uncertainty and discomfort around this thing that was really scary for me. And I'm so glad I did, because I don't think anything is seriously wrong. And look what I would have missed if I had just let OCD take over it, with no facts. And if there had been something wrong, I wouldn't have changed a thing. I mean, that's the reality. It's like whether you do or whether you don't. Hell, otherwise, like, you want to live your life to the fullest. And I know that's cliche. I'm not always the best at that, but so whether it was or wasn't, I don't know that it would change anything. Anyway. I'm going to try to get to everybody's questions, so y'all can hang out if you want. I'll go a little over. While you're all here, though, I do want to plug tomorrow, the IOCDF and Stick with the Ick have the 2025 Online Faith and OCD Conference, which is awesome. I just posted the link. If you guys got, if you have morals group, religious group, or just want to hear some amazing speakers and be a community, I think it's $20 for 6 hours of content. It's live. Katie will be on there. A lot of amazing clinicians and therapists, and that's the same thing, in lived experience and all the above. So if you deal with religious group or moral scrupulosity, or just sounds interesting to you, it's the 5th year. It's an amazing conference, and I hope all you can attend. Just don't want to forget that, because if I forget that, I'd be sleeping on the couch or maybe outside. So wanted to get that out of the way. Okay, now moving on. I remember when you went to the DM. I was so proud of you. You did, though. You may have triple masked and wore a human body condom, but you went, and we're okay with that, Beth. You crushed that. Patrick's right. Pretend everyone is crabs, because that was for your crabs too, if I remember correctly. Great question. Yes, it can. I think that it's my personal opinion. I'm not a doctor. I'm not a psychiatrist. I'm not a therapist. I'm just an individual lived experience. But what I will say is, the most effective combination of treatment is the combination of medication and cognitive behavioral therapy. Most experts believing that medication can account for maybe 20 to 30% of improvement, and therapy 70, 80% of improvement. Of course, it's so individualized. Some individuals do really well with therapy and don't need treatment, with therapy and don't need medication. Other people do really well with medication. I'm of the mind that until there's better options, ERP being gold standard, extremely effective, but it doesn't help everyone. That's true. And that isn't because it doesn't work. It's just that different things work for different people. So I think until there's some really effective options out there, and there are, but not enough, I think that we have to use every tool at our disposal. And so, one just has to ask themselves, is there an opportunity to feel even better than I am now? And do I want that, right? If you have 50 or 60% symptom remission in doing therapy, and you consult with your doctor, like, you know what, we think we can get you another 10 to 15% with medication. If that's worth it to you, there's zero shame in that. And vice versa, right? So it's about having all the tools at your disposal and determining what's best for you. Ultimately, is my final answer. But yes, absolutely. Therapy is, the primary or the most impactful medication we have for OCD, in my opinion. So absolutely. And also, I think we need to rethink how we think about meds. Back in my day, it was you're going to get on this med, you're going to be on it the rest of your life. Now that's not the thinking. The thinking is, obviously depending on the patient, but for individuals that may be a little bit more treatment resistant, like I was, maybe you start on a medication that lowers the shields a little bit and allows us to get some treatment in there, right? Some ERP and related treatments. And then if you start improving, we can reduce the med and maybe even get off of it. So, right now the thinking is it's more like, can this help us right now as we integrate modalities of therapy? And I like that. And, it doesn't have to be an all for the rest of your life thing. It can be a just for now medication, and then we can reassess at, different milestones and things like that. All right. Cruising right along here. Phyllis, I have been very ill sometime over the past several years, Beth, and I have to say, having run away, OCD is way worse than physical sickness to me. Anyway, I appreciate you saying that. I agree. Sorry. In my OCF Con video, I tagline you as Katie O'Donnell. You know what? Listen, after this last conference, I am firmly and unequivocally Katie O'Dunn's husband. And I am so at peace with that. I'm pretty confident that will be my name tag in Seattle. And I'm considering legally changing my name to Katie O'Dunn's husband. So I'm totally cool with that. Let's check this out. Rob wrote, interesting, when I was at the OCDI at McLean, which is the OCD Institute, their residential program in Boston, I asked the other residents if they had had a head injury when young. A surprising number said that they had. I was curious about this because I had a serious head injury at 11 months of age. Not that it would influence treatment in any way. I just found that interesting. Absolutely, Rob. I'd be curious. I'd definitely be curious to know. You don't have to, Beth. It's a choice. I'm always going to get in there. She would say, go out and live. She would say, listen to Ethan. She would say Ethan is extremely good looking and you should definitely listen to him. Ethan may even cheat on Katie. You're welcome, Cash. Let's see. See, dropping weights on an old lady is a big gym intrusive thought. So because mine for so long revolved around hitting my head, I started back training about a month and a half ago. Just we're changing my life around completely, diet, exercise, all that. And I hadn't really used free weights before. And so I do a lot of free weights now. And every time those things are above my head and they're like, go closer to your ears and stay your elbows locked, I'm like, this thing's going to fall on my head and I'm going to die. I hadn't had the intrusive thought about head hitting in a while, and it's really aggressive in the gym for me. Anything that goes over my head that I'm holding, that I start getting shaky and I'm going to drop, and like haven't not done anything because of it. But it's funny that you mention it because yeah, that's an intrusive thought. Intrusive thought. Whoa, excuse me a moment. Mouth is drying. That's an intrusive thought that's popped up for me recently as I went back to the gym. And I like to say to our intrusive thoughts, aren't you interesting? That is just a fascinating thought. Thank you for that, OCD. I really appreciate it. Yes, we're having more word issues. Oh my gosh, Deirdre, hi. Hi, Gadget Girl OG. I'm glad you're here. I didn't see your first text. I apologize. Mom in the house. Thank you, Mom. Amazing words, Mr. Ethan. Sending support your way, Beth. Stay strong. You can to the point of acceptance of whatever comes your way. I agree. Beth has got it. Ethan, I really appreciate your talks. It's good to hear about your experience. Thank you so much, Rob. I appreciate that. Right? Katie's got a mouth. For real. She's got a F-bombs dropping all the time. Oh man, Cash calling my nerdum out on my Star Trek poster or signed picture. All right, we'll just leave that alone. Oh my gosh, that's hilarious. Yes, they are. They'll appear on the playlists of all the IOCDF social media channels. So if you're on Facebook, if you're on YouTube, wherever it is, it's automatically posted shortly after this ends. And you can rewatch this and all of the ones before. Hundreds of hours of Ethan. So, over Christmas break, if you have nothing going on, you'd like to watch 3 weeks of these, please feel free. Yeah, exactly, Chad. You got it, man. Oh, I'm catching up. Yes. Thank you, Wendy. I appreciate that. Sorry, I was reading Cash as Ethan was in Dexter, by the way. That is true. All right. Mark wrote, I really think I can get rid of it without drugs since they have a lot of side effects that concerns me. And that's valid. Look, again, I am not a psychologist. I am not a psychiatrist, but you have, you're in total control. We should never stigmatize drugs, medication for OCD. It's no different than chemotherapy for cancer or any other type of drug for any disease, right? Those drugs are there for a reason, and they're very helpful to many, and I am on them. With that being said, if you're not on drugs and you can actively engage in treatment and therapy and absolutely try it. There's nothing wrong with trying first. And, if you start to see improvement, you can make decisions along the way. You really are in control along with your treatment providers, and you can make decisions as you go. And knowing that they're out there, if you need additional support, is a good thing too. And if you've started drugs first, that's okay also, right? There's everything it can be customizable in a way. So, I wouldn't write off drugs completely. There are side effects for sure, and others not so much, and all the above. But I think that, that's perfectly okay, Mark. Absolutely. Hey now. Well, now that I know she curses so much, maybe not. Oh, Beth's supporting Katie. All right. She doesn't curse so much. She doesn't curse nearly as enough as me. All right. I think hey, Ash, here's Cash's feelings on your OCD thought. That's amazing. All right. Sorry to go over a little bit, but I really wanted to get to everybody's questions. I think we knocked the rust off. It'd been a minute. I think we knocked the I'm just going to end here because I can't talk tonight. But we did knock the rust off a little bit. As always, thank you for being here. Thank you to the IOCDF for allowing me to be here and speak my mind and support all of you, and you support all of me. And hopefully they didn't hear me drop the F-bomb and I can show up next week. And if they did, you know what? Sit with the discomfort. See, then I'm going to worry about even saying that afterwards. I will absolutely give a hug for you, Deirdre. Yes, as you know, the IOCDF is a donor-sponsor organization. If you can give, visit iocdf.org / nope. Yep, that one. / donate. I really think, let's see here, real quick, Mark wrote, I really think training is an effective tool because you really feel hyped and honestly you forget about them. I think I know what you're talking about. Anyway, and OCD FaithCon tomorrow. Check it out. I put the link in the chat. Oh, and next week we'll be here. Katie and I will be on together. Tell your friends, tell your family, tell your dogs, tell your pets. We are here. We expect all crabs Beth to have personal logins. And that'll just increase the audience size by what, 20, 25, 30? And yes, thank you. My speech. I think I want to do another one. I'm ready to do another keynote. Let's do it. I think we do it. I think there are so many great keynote speakers of years past, and I'd love to hear updates. So maybe we can do like a massive keynote at the conference this year of like all past keynotes and just catch ups and things like that. That'd be awesome. Anyway, with all that being said, stay vigilant, feel the feels, don't let OCD off the hook. We will see you next week, Tuesday, 7 p.m. East Coast. Have a beautiful evening, and good night.